So before we start, I think most of you have participated in that small survey before the program. So as per the result of that survey, the 4 topics which got the maximum vote are like budget and saving, and second is like financial stress, keeping you away from Krishna consciousness, and third was like fear for material problems. Like all health, death, any emergency, accidents or job loss, things like that. And the fourth one was early retirement planning. So the way we do it, like today we'll try to cover the basics of like what consciousness we need to keep in dealing with our financial matters, because that is the core and crux of it. Once we are perfectly situated in that, then I think rest of the things are just technicals. Like we just have to know the tools and the techniques of how to handle it and not make any gross mistakes which derail us from the path. But first of all, we just need to understand that what should be our consciousness and what should be our thought process in dealing with financial matters as a devotee, because there is a vast difference between how a materialistic handles money and versus how as a devotee and practitioner sadhakas we should handle money. And especially with the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and the various instructions in Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada has made it very clear and simple for all of us to follow, and we'll go through it and we'll try to see how it is practical in today's term, and what things we can do to live up to those instructions on a day-to-day basis. And then in next session, we can cover early retirement planning, how to plan for early retirement. And again, like it's early retirement means that we want to retire before normal age of 60, 62 and take real vanprastha, like maybe around age 50, 55, not wait till the very last moment or even beyond, because I have seen that many devotees, they keep working even beyond their retirement age. And so there are 2 reasons for that. One is they don't maybe have something better to do. That's why they keep doing the job, which is unlikely after years of practice, because we should have some taste and we should have some desire to serve the mission and strengthen our own sadhana and practice at that age. And so the second reason, which is maybe more relevant or more true, maybe that their finances does not allow them to take the retirement in a true sense, that if they stop earning active money, then they may feel that I don't have enough to survive, and that's the reason they keep working even till the age 65, 70, and so on. So we look at, like, if our objective is to get early retirement, like how do we make ourselves financially secure by the age 50, 55, so that we can completely dedicate ourselves for our real goal, And then in last session, then we can cover about the fear factor, like how to deal with all the fears and anxiety about money, because all the fear comes from uncertainty. And we know that this material world is dukhalaya shashvatam and pad vipadam. So we will get, and devotees are not immune to that, we know. So we will get all kind of troubles. Let's be prepared for that. We will have job loss, we will have health problems, we will have death, untimely death for ourselves, for our near and dear ones, and we will have health issues, and we may have accidents. So all kind of these things, how to deal with those so that it doesn't text us financially. Like at least financially we won't be in any trouble if any of these material problems happen to us. And obviously we have the backing of our sadhana and spiritual knowledge and the association of devotees. We will keep us healthy mentally and emotionally, but at least financially also we can secure ourselves for these problems. So that we can cover in the third session. And Prabhuji has my phone and email ID. So if anybody want to have any further things to discuss after third session, then you can definitely approach me, and we can go through the individual situation one-on-one and see if I can help you anyway further. Okay. So as Prabhuji said, like I would request if you can keep your videos on as much as possible. So that would be really helpful for me. And another thing is that just to make it little more interactive, anytime if I ask any yes or no kind of questions, so you can respond by doing thumbs up or thumbs down so that I get some clear idea about all of you. Okay. So first to start with, I just want to know, like, is it true that all the participants are from Indian origin? Anybody here who is not from Indian origin? Okay, yeah, looks like most of you are Indian origin. Okay, and is it also true that all of you are like first generation in United States? Like your parents were from India and you are the first one who came here? Yeah. Yeah, I see thumbs up. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So this will help me to put right context to what I talk. Okay. Okay. So to start, let's see. So my Guru Maharaj used to say that everything material can be spiritualized. So in that way, if we think that money or Lakshmi, so whatever with or whatever finance or whatever Lakshmi or whatever wealth we have, at one level it is material, but it can be spiritualized. And the very simple definition he gave, what is material versus what is spiritualized, what is spiritual is, if we keep ourselves in center, then that is material. But if we keep Krishna in center, then that is spiritual. So it's a very simple one line instruction, but very profound. So if we just keep this one line to our heart all the time in whatever things we are dealing, then that makes our things so much easier. So if we are dealing with money, keeping ourselves in center, like it is for me, then it is material. But if we keep Krishna in center, that whatever I'm dealing with, whether it's an investment, whether it's an expense, whether it's saving, whether it's charity, whatever aspect I'm dealing with money, if I keep Krishna in center, then it becomes spiritual. And the moment it becomes spiritual, then it's a transcendental, and we don't have any karma out of it. We don't have any ill effects out of it, and everything, whatever results we get out of it is also always happy, like always good, pleasing to Krishna, so that is pleasing to us. So for example, so we can discuss, like as we move forward, we'll discuss that how we keep all these things in mind, like how we cultivate this habit of keeping Krishna in center in all our money decisions on a day-to-day basis. So that would be very easy to follow with that. So for that, to make it more practical, what I would do, I would like to go through some of the quotes which Srila Prabhupada has given us. Yeah, you can see my screen. Yeah. So in Bhagavatam, in 7th canto, 14th chapter, we have this chapter, Ideal Grahastha Life. And since we are all our grahasthas, it's a very, very practical chapter for all of us to follow. And it has a very, very good practical instructions. And Prabhupada has given very, very elaborate purports in that chapter, which gives us very clear direction as to how we should live our grahastha life. And I just taken some quotes from that chapter, which talks about money, like how we should deal with money. And Prabhupada has given very clear instructions on that without any ambiguity. So let's see. So in the 5th shloka of that 7.14, the Prabhupada said that we should live a very simple life and just maintaining body and soul together. So this statement we have read and heard many times. Yeah. But the key word here is that body and soul together. So what does it really mean? That it really means is that we should live a life just to show that we are alive. In other words, like we are surviving, right? So anything, any endeavor we are doing beyond it, then that falls into category of sense gratification. So, so to make sure that we are maintaining our body and soul together, so what does it really mean? So it really means is that we need a house to protect ourselves from environment, right? To protect ourselves from outside attack or people. So we need a shelter. But to keep a body and soul together, we may not need a 5-bedroom, single family, detached home with a big lawn in front and back, right? We can have a simple house or a townhouse or an apartment or a condominium that will serve our need. Similarly, we may need a car to travel, especially in US, if you don't have public transport. So, but again, it doesn't mean that we need a brand new car out of the showroom and that to either BMW, Mercedes or Audi or something like that. Even a second-hand car, a simple second-hand car can serve my need to go from one place to another. Similarly, I may need a phone in today's time, but I may not need an iPhone, the latest phone every 2 years, right? That is not needed for my survival. I may need a laptop, but I may not need a Mac, you know? So like that, everything is there. Like I may need a TV because I want to watch Katha, I want to hear Kirtan, but I may not need a 70-inch TV or maybe TV in every room in my house, right? So like that, we can look at each and everything which we are using, which we are consuming every day and see whether is it really needed to keep my body and soul together, or is it just something which I am using or I'm having just to keep myself more comfortable, either to at a bodily level or more at a subtle level, like either for my prestige, for my status or something like that, or just to keep my body more comfortable than what it is to be, right? So that way, if we live, then we can live this instruction practically on a day-to-day basis. We don't need to rule out this statement saying that it's impractical. It's very, very practical, and Prabhupada has demonstrated himself. Yeah, we know that how he lived in Vrindavan, how he lived in US when he came here. So he lived on that principle that he just lived to keep body and soul together. He didn't have any luxury at all. Similarly, next statement Prabhupada has it and same purport is that not inventing unnecessary necessities is the basic principle of Vedic civilization. So we just talked about that we should not create unnecessary necessities because this mind tricks us, to create unnecessary necessities. And this today's world, all the companies, they keep giving new gadgets and new tools and new technology and everything. All these advertisements and marketing team, they create unnecessary necessities in our life. They say that, like it feels like that if we don't have that thing, then our life is not useful. We are not comfortable, and it's must-have thing to have. So we have to be very careful about that we don't invent any unnecessary necessities. And as Prabhupada said, that this is the basic principle. So we can keep this in mind, so that will also help us. Then third, Prabhupada said, therefore, instead of hankering for more and more money, a sincere devotee of Lord tries to invent some ways to earn his livelihood. And when he does so, Krishna helps him. So here the key is that as a devotee, as a practitioner devotee, if I don't hanker for more and more money, if I live to keep my body and soul together, if I don't create any unnecessary necessities, then Krishna will help me. Prabhupada is giving this assurance that Krishna will help that person who live in this way. And from my own personal experience, I can vouch for this because I have so many incidents in my life in last couple of years where I completely felt that how Krishna helped me in that way. So I just quote one or two examples so that you can relate what I'm meaning. So for example, we got this stimulus money check last year, right? And this year. So that was kind of unexpected, right? We may have job loss or we may not have job loss, and we may not have got impacted financially due to Corona, but still we got that stimulus money. So that is kind of Krishna helping me, right? Because I didn't expect it and it did come. Similarly, I met with a car accident last year, and it was not my fault. It was other person's fault. But my car got declared total. But the car was not that much damaged that it's undrivable. So it was just a cosmetic damage. But since it was old and the repair cost was too much, so company declared it total. But it is still perfectly drivable. So I got the whole money for the car, as well as I could still drive it. So I don't have to replace the car. And on top of that, I got the medical expense and the claim also. So in together, I got a good amount of money. So again, it came out of nowhere, right? Then just last week, I applied for a summer camp for my daughter to a state university. It was a couple of weeks camp, and it has a $500 fee. And they had a section of scholarship form, like optional to fill it up. And I just fill it up, and I just prayed to Krishna in my heart that Krishna, it is up to you. Like if you want that money to be used for to go to university, it's fine. But if not, then it can be used for your service. So you decide as you want. If you want, then you can give me that scholarship, and that way I can use that money for your service. Or if you wish, should go to university, then let it go to university. And to my surprise, they were saying that they will give 75%, up to 75%, like only up to $400, but they end up giving me full $500 scholarship for that camp. So Krishna will help. We should have this firm faith in this, that if we live sincerely to that instruction, then Krishna will surely help. And Krishna assures that in Bhagavad Gita also, that he preserves what we have. So he's not going to leave us alone in that matter. Then in shloka number 8 in the same chapter, Srila Prabhupada said that if one has more than one requires for his necessities, then extra money should be spent for Krishna. And we know that our acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami also has recommended that how we should distribute our wealth. He said that up to 50% should be used for Krishna's service. So that is again very clear instruction that we spend whatever we need for our necessities, and then whatever extra we have, let it be spent for Krishna. Now it could be for devotee care, it could be for temple, it could be for any service which we seem suitable and we seem capable of doing it. And then Prabhupada mentioned that materialists are inventing so many artificial necessities that those who have money being allured by such artificial necessities. So we just spoke about it, like every day new things come up in the market and we think that, yes, I need it, otherwise I can't live without it. So we keep up spending our money on all those things which may not be necessarily needed for us. Then Prabhupada said in 10th shloka that one should not engage himself in severe hardship, and one means of livelihood should be extremely simple. So again, this is very powerful instruction, that severe hardships, that for many times we end up doing a very severe hardship in just to survive and just to maintain our status quo, right? So we came all the way from India to US just for this purpose, right? And we felt so much hardship in initial days. Today we may be very comfortable, but if we look back when we first landed here, that was not a very rosy picture for most of us. Like we went through some hardship in initial days. And even while here, like there is so much hardship. If you are living in a big city, then every day, as Prabhupada used to say, that we spend 2-3 hours commuting to go to office. and so much harsh weather sometimes, the visa issues. We are constantly in anxiety that whether it will renew or not renew, I will get the job, my job will continue, not continue. So much hardship, and that way we just make our life complicated, and the only outcome of that is that we just want to maintain the status quo, or we want more and more wealth. So we don't have to work that hard, like if I give my personal example, that I came here in 2012, so it's like ninth year now, and I am working in same company since last 16 years, since 2005, and I never thought of changing my job. I never applied anywhere in last 15 years, and I never got an increment in last 8 years, not a single cent increment, and not a single promotion, not a single change in job responsibility. But that is perfectly fine because I don't need. Krishna is giving already what more than what I need, what my necessities are. So there is no need to be having any anxiety over this. Rather, I enjoy that because I am getting more and more time to spend where it makes more meaning, right? Like for sadhana and for reading and for hearing and for chanting. So that is a perfect situation. So rather than being stressed about it, we should welcome that. So instead of switching jobs here and there, switching from moving from one city to another city, so all those things comes under severe hardship. And the last instruction Srila Prabhupada gave is that if money and education are not engaged in the service of Lord, these valuable assets must be engaged in service of Maya. So it's either or. Either it's Krishna or it's Maya. Prabhupada many times says that material sense gratification and spiritual progress does not go well together. So we have to choose one of these two. So either we can be in service of Maya or we can be in service of Krishna. So it's for us which way we want to go, and definitely we want to go to the way of serving Krishna, not serving Maya. So that way we should use our education, whatever higher education we got, because of that which we are here today in a very comfortable job and earning a good amount of money. So if we follow the instructions we just gone through, then I don't see any reason for any of us to feel any anxiety about financial matters at all. And just look at it this way. So if we are in, like, I would say that if we are in IT jobs, which most of us, I think we are, then we are earning like in top 10% of US population, right? And if we are earning in top 10% of US population, it means that it is in top 10% of the world population as well, because US is one of the most wealthiest country, and the people in US, whatever they earn, that is one of the highest in the world. So if we look at it that way, then, and we have the spiritual knowledge given by Srila Prabhupada, which is, I would say, 0.001% of the world, right? Hardly like 1 or 2 million people have practicing this seriously. And we are one of those. So that way we are right at the top of the spectrum of humanity. And even after having access to these two, like both material as well as spiritual, the top class material and top class spiritual asset with us, there is no reason for us to feel any anxiety, any fear, or any stress. And if we are, then it's only two reasons. One is either we are not following our instructions given by Srila Prabhupada seriously, or we are making some gross mistakes as far as dealing with money, which is preventing us from doing that. So we can definitely overcome from that very easily. So just a minute, I think I lost the share.
Prabhu, I was wondering, did you want to go on presentation mode, or
Yes, Prabhu.
This is fine?
No, I want to go to presentation mode again. Yeah, somehow I lost it.
Or you're on slide number 2.
Yeah, but in my Zoom window, I'm not getting that control window once again. It's in the small window.
You want to stop sharing and then reshare?
Yeah, let me try that. Yeah, I got it now.
And then at the bottom, there's a presentation mode.
Yeah, right. I got it. Yeah, sorry about that. You can see that?
Yeah, but it's still not in presentation mode. In the bottom right, if you see there's an icon next to the minus.
Okay. You can see now?
No, it's still not. You see the bottom, if you go all the way to the bottom right, where you have the minus sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we lost you now.
Yeah, I'm sharing again just to make sure.
Okay.
You see now?
Right, but we also see the notes if you want to share that. But that's right now it's like 3 slides. So if you go back, I can tell you which one. Try this. Go to the bottom right. There's an icon at the bottom next to the minus sign. Further left. Further left. Yeah, the first icon. Yep. That's this. Okay, it's going in. Okay, I think you have two monitors.
Yeah.
Okay, that might be it, right, Ram Tulsi Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhuji, I think he will have to share the other monitor.
Okay, yeah, I'm doing it now from other monitor. Let me see.
Thank you, dear Krishna Prabhu.
Welcome, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Dhanit Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
So Prabhu, you have 2 monitor, Prabhu?
Yes.
So is in the monitor section, see Prabhu, there's primary monitor and use presenter view, right? So
right.
Can you change over there or remove that presenter view and see? There's option on the, use that presenter view on the right, one step right. Yes, if you remove that and try to do present again. Or use the primary monitor, change the primary monitor, Prabhu. Over there's a primary monitor drop down will be there. Before that, you just uncheck it, right? Yeah, there's, click over there.
Yeah, it's disabled. Anyway, let me close it and I'll start it all over again. Sorry about that. Like, I'm not very comfortable using all these controls.
When you were sharing on the Zoom, were you selecting the screen, that particular screen, where like what you want to show? Because Zoom give you option, right? What screen are you going to share?
Right.
So make sure that you select the right. Now we're still seeing the notes here. If we just do present, Prabhu, if it on the bottom of the screen, let's click that. Let us see what. Then on the top, on the center, there is a present display settings. This is the center. Yeah, display settings. Click over there, Prabhu. swap present. Click over there. Swap presenter view. Now it's perfect.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, devotees. I'm extremely sorry for this. Okay. So yeah. So as we are discussing that. If we just follow Srila Prabhupada's instruction with full sincerity, then definitely we can achieve no stress, no fear, and very blissful as far as our financial matters are concerned. So let's quickly go through the objective of this 3-part seminar. So like first one is that we can prepare a financially stable Vanaprastha, and that means that retired devotional life. And as we discussed that following Srila Prabhupada's teaching, we just have simple living, high thinking without compromising basic material comfort. So again, in retirement and Vanaprastha, we should have some austerity. So we should not aim for having the same level of comforts as we are having today. We should be ready to make some compromise as we move along, as we reach towards our Vanaprastha and retirement age. Because that is another mistake. Why we feel fearful or why we think that we are not ready to take that step, because we don't want to compromise on any of our comforts which we have. For example, I cannot move from the place where I'm living. I like the association, I like the temple, I like the Sangha over here, and I can't move from here. And since I can't move from here and I don't have enough money to support me in this city or this location, I need to keep on working. So that kind of thinking will stop us from taking right decision, because we should be if we are very clear that what is our primary objective. Our primary objective to get rid of this material world, get out of from here. Now we can get out of from here from anywhere. It's not mean that we have to go to a particular place only. And when we think in terms of comfort, even in spiritual comfort, then again it's kind of a selfish desire, because we are thinking just about ourselves, that my comfort or my Sangha or my association should not get disturbed. But just imagine if everybody would have think like that, then ISKCON would not have been a worldwide movement today. It would have been just a New York movement today. Just imagine like Brahmananda Prabhu, Shyamananda Prabhu, Madhav Prabhu, Janki Mataji, Malti Mataji, Yamuna Mataji, all those devotees have traveled all over the world. And many hundreds of such devotees traveled all over the world to spread ISKCON. And they didn't care that, oh, I am comfortable here in Mountain Temple, I am comfortable in Boston Temple, I am comfortable in San Francisco, so I should not move anywhere else. They just went anywhere and everywhere. So that is the example we have in front of us to follow. Srila Prabhupada didn't stay in Vrindavan. He didn't stay in one place. He constantly traveled at such an old age. So if we are ready to adopt simple living anywhere, then we can make that decision very comfortably anytime, if you are not attached to the comforts, both material as well as spiritual. And as I said, that we have this deadly combination of US income plus Krishna conscious values and lifestyle. So with this combination, there should not be any reason for us to not have a real Vanaprastha life. So for that, what we need to create some financial awareness, because we may not know all the things or all the terms or what all need to be done to deal with the money. So that's where we will discuss some tools which allows us to make those right decisions. And again, like be financial literate, so that we get what each basic terms and terminology in financial world means. And most important, set definite financial goal and plan to achieve it. So if we don't have any goals, then we cannot reach anywhere. It's as simple as that. So when we talk about retirement, we should have a very proper math done. This is the age I want to retire. From that age till my normal life expectancy, you can take maximum is like up to 90 years, 95 years, whatever you feel comfortable. This is where I want to live. This is how my expenses would be. And this is how much I need for those many years. Let's say if I plan to retire at 55, then 55 to 95 for 40 years. This much money I need. And once I have that much money, then I can definitely hang my boots. So once you are ready to adjust your lifestyle and have this goal calculated, then we should be ready to then hang our boot. But if we don't have the goal, then we will always have that uncertainty in our mind. And then we will not be able to make decisions, because we will always feel that there is not enough. There is not enough. There is not enough. But if we have this goal calculated and in front of us, then we can definitely take that step. And I will tell you that how we can calculate that goal if you need help with that. And then we know various options for investment which help us to achieve that goal. And if needed, we can get professional help. So don't shy away from getting any professional help, because that is another mistake most of us make, that for financial matters, we don't want to discuss with anybody. We want to take all decisions ourselves. But if you are not expert in the field, then just like any other field, like doctor, lawyer, any such field, we go to professionals. Similarly, we should not shy away from getting a professional help for this matter also. And then ultimately, this should be the final objective, that we want to serve Krishna and devotees stress-free wholeheartedly, that there should not be any grudge in our heart when it comes to serving Krishna. And finally, reduce attachment to money, because that is the key. And we can't reduce attachment to money unless and until we are very strong in our sadhana and our Krishna consciousness is strong. It's like inversely proportional. The more we become Krishna conscious, the less we become attached to material things. So that is a given fact. There is no two ways about it. So the more we become serious and steady in following the instructions, the more we can reduce our attachment. So now let's quickly discuss some myths about money, because there are many misconceptions we have, common misconception which we have, which allows us to make wrong decisions. So the first misconception we have is that more money will solve all my problem, because there is never enough, right? We always think that if I have this much, then yes, then I am set. But when we reach that point, then we need more. Because when we came to US, we never thought of that we will having this much money as we have today. At least I can say for myself. And but still we need more, right? So that is a big myth. So what is the truth? That we have to spend less than what we earn. If we do that, then we will always have enough, no matter how much we are earning. A road vendor also can have enough money if he spends less than what he's earning. And a billionaire can also have enough money only when he spends less than what he's earning. So it's true for everybody. Then we think that following a budget is inhibiting, like it limits my option. But truth is that it gives you greater control and choice, because now you know that where are you spending, why are you spending, and how are you spending. If you don't have budget, then you are spending in as per your emotions, as per your desires, and those desires may not be always purified. Like those may be purely material desires, and you are spending emotionally, and you are spending impulsively, and that does not give you greater choice and control for future, because once money is spent, that is gone forever. It's not going to come back, just like time. Then we think that if I have a big bank balance, then yes, that is the best test of my spending, that I can spend if I have a big bank balance. But bank balance cannot forecast any unexpected event in the future. Take, for example, this current corona situation. People's lifetime savings is wiped out in a couple of weeks. The whole family got admitted, impacted by corona. They had a huge expenses in medical care, and their lifetimes of savings has been wiped out in just a month's time. So however big bank balance you may have, if you have not planned for unexpected events in your life, then that is not a surety. That is not a guarantee of your future spending power. And we always believe and justify that I spend according to my needs. So again, this is a very big myth. The truth is that most of us, we spend according to our emotions. Unless and until we are very at high platform of Krishna consciousness, It's very, very difficult to spend according to just needs rather than we spend mostly according to our emotions. And again, some of us may think that debt gives me choices, else I wait. If I don't take this loan, if I don't borrow the money, then I have to wait forever. I can't buy this new car. I can't buy my house. I can't buy this gadget, latest appliances. So I have to wait forever because I will never have saved or earned that much. But just by paying a small amount every month, I can have it right now. But the truth is that it decreases my future options. The moment you get a debt, you are hooked to repay for that duration, that much amount every month. So it means that that much money is not to use for any other purpose every month. And then we think that money is valuable, money is everything. But again, that is not true because money can only be traded for things of value. A piece of paper does not have any value of its own. We know the example of countries like Zimbabwe or those countries which got bankrupt. So no matter how much money you have of that currency, it does not have any value. And then last but not the least, we think that my present financial situation is a result of circumstances and events out of my control. It's my destiny. I don't earn enough. Whatever I earn is out of my control. You know, I was in such circumstances. My job got lost. I didn't get a good education. I didn't come US on the right time. I didn't get my visa renewed. So we can give all kind of excuses to what our current situation is. But the truth is that it is all because of the decision which we made based on the money principles which we believed in. So whatever is our thinking, whatever is the principles which we believe in, some of which we just talked about, based on that, your future financial life will be dependent, not because of circumstances or events which you think that you are out of your control. So it's all about making right decisions at the right time. So with that, we move on to the next topic for today, which is the first topic, is like budgeting and saving. So any of you, like, how many of you have the budget right now, which you can say that, yes, I know how much my monthly expenses is on top of your head? If you can do thumbs up or give me some indication. Okay, not too many I got. Okay, anyway, so the key is that we should have the budget, and that budget should be very, very firm budget, like in a sense that we should know how much we are spending on what very clearly. Because if we don't have that, then it's like we are playing in dark. We don't know where our money is going. And I have seen many, many instances, like at least I have coached more than 50 devotees in last few months, one-on-one. And in most of the cases, I found that people came back saying that, Prabhu, when I did budget exercise, which you suggested, then we came across so many things which we are spending on and which we think that it's not necessary. We are just spending it out of habit or out of something, but it's not necessary. We could cut down on so many things. And so it's very important to have a budget, because if we don't measure it, we can't control it. It's as simple as that. So we have both need and wants. So we can plan for the needs, but we cannot plan for the wants, because our wants can be anything and it can go anywhere. So again, if we have the budget, it will help us make discipline to follow the instructions which we just discussed, to live simple life. So we make a budget according to simple life, what all I need to spend on. And then if we stick to that budget, then our life automatically, slowly come to that simple living level. And then, as we says that people spend emotionally, and then we try to rationalize it. That, Prabhu, it is want. It is not want, it is a need. Many a time we will just justify it. So how can we prepare the budget? So for that, we have to take very systematic approach. The first is we should have one budget for regular monthly expenses. So that includes all your bills, all your grocery shopping, car, house mortgage or rent, all those kind of expenses, which are your regular recurring monthly expenses. And then second sort of expenses are your periodic annual expenses. For example, your life insurance premiums, for your property tax, for your car tax, or anything like that, which you pay either 6 monthly or once in a year. So these are the two kind of expenses which we have. So we should segregate it in two, like monthly as well as periodic. And then we should compare it with actual. That whether if I set a budget, let's say I spend $1,000 on regular monthly and $500 on annual periodic, then we should track it over a period of next 3-6 months, that how much I'm really spending. Is it really up to the mark or I'm falling behind? And then overall it should be below budget. So we have to look in total. We just want to go into nitty gritty of it to create a overburden on us to track the budget. We set aside a budget. We should make sure that month on month basis, we are falling into that. And nowadays, lot many tools are available, like, even your bank account, it gives you tool that how much you are spending as compared to what you are depositing every month. So that gives you a ready reckoner whether you are doing it on budget or you are doing it above your budget. So as I said, you can be amazed to see how much, where and what you spend, and then you can cut down on those. And it's very good tool for families because we have multiple needs and multiple wants. If it is just one person, then it's easy to control. But when we are living in a family, then everybody has their own needs and wants. So that way it's become difficult. And then there is one person who is earning, he need to control it. So then it becomes even more difficult. So, but if we have the budget, then we can stick to it. Then everybody align to it in family. That yes, this is the budget. If we have to spend this thing in this month, I don't have the budget, so we have to postpone that. It's as simple as that. And as I said, if you can't measure it, you cannot control it. So how to practically implement it? So now let's come to the technique part of it. So again, creating too much burden, very simply we can execute this. So for this, what we can have two accounts. One is checking. You all already familiar about it. You must have, all of you have checking account. So in this checking account, we keep our regular monthly expenses. So whatever monthly expense you calculate, you just keep that much plus maybe little above, like maybe little 25% to 50% above your monthly budget into this checking account. Your checking account balance should not be more than that. And you can keep it with your any nationwide bank so that you have the debit card, you have the check, and you have the access to ATMs. And even if you move around, you will not have any problems. You don't have to change your bank every now and then. And then you can have savings account for all your periodic expenses, because this is not going to be used every month. So we want to keep it aside. So for that, you can use the savings account. And then you can put either two savings account. One is for periodic expenses and one is for emergency cash and extra savings. So that again, you don't tap into that extra saving or emergency cash just for your any expenses. So only account to spend is the checking account and this savings account where you have your annual periodic expenses. So these are the only two accounts from which you will do all your spending, and you will deposit only that much which is needed for your budget. So if you do that, then you automatically follow the budget, because the moment your account balance goes below that minimum threshold, you get an alert that I am spending more. And then you can do more digging to find out where did you spend more. Very simple. You don't have to maintain Excel sheet. You don't have to go through each and every line item. You don't have to do Quicken, Mint, these, that. No, we don't want to spend extra time or take overburden. With this very simple technique, we can maintain our budget. I am following this practically from last 8 years, and I never maintained any Excel sheet for mine. I never looked at my monthly statements line by line. I never need to do it. And on top of that, you can open an online high yield savings account for that emergency and extra cash, which I talked about. And if you open the online high yield saving account, then we can earn an interest up to 0.8, anywhere from 0.8, 0.4 to up to 3%. And there is one bank, which is HM Bradley, which offered 3% interest on your savings. So if you go to that bank's website, you will get the details. Like, I don't want to get into detail of it, but it's very easy to understand. If you go there, you will understand, like they encourage you to save. So if you save your money, then automatically you earn 3% on all your deposits. So that is fantastic. Nowhere you can get that much amount of interest on your savings account, which is completely secured by FDIC. And another thing to take care of is that choose your bank such that you don't have to pay any fees. Because unnecessary fees like monthly maintenance fee, check fee, overdraft fee, all those kind of fees, you should be avoided by all means. So choose a bank which does not charge any of those fees. Or use the ways to avoid those fees, like by keeping a minimum deposit or by having a direct deposit of some amount. So whatever those conditions are, let's do that so that we don't end up paying any fees to them. And this is another link which I can share later. You don't have to note it down. So this link gives you the list of all the banks which are offering bonuses for opening new accounts. So if you need to open a new checking or saving account, you can go to this blog and then you can look at the links, and like more than 20-30 banks are listed there, which gives anywhere from $100 to $500 for opening a new checkings or savings account and following some conditions like putting some direct deposit, having a deposit for 5 months or 6 months, certain amount, dollar amount, and you will get that welcome bonus. And after you get the bonus, you are free to close the account. Like there is no obligation. So this you can use, that will give you some extra cash periodically, and that we can use for Krishna service, because that is beyond what we are earning. So that is something totally on top of what we get. Okay, then we come to savings part. So for savings, those who are struggling with savings, very simple formula to save. Assume that you are getting a 10% paycheck cut from tomorrow, which is quite possible. It can happen anytime. So rather than it happen and then you take action, take a voluntarily pay cut. Whatever you are earning, assume that I am earning 10% less from tomorrow. World is not going to fall down. You are not going to starve. Nothing will happen. Just take that 10% pay cut and then you will automatically save 10% minimum. So anybody who is struggling to save, follow this principle and it works fantastically. And if you are not having any regular investment, or if you are not able to save regularly every month, then this particular technique can come very handy. And what we can do this with 10% which we save, this money we can invest to build our early retirement corpus. So what we can do, you can again, like as I said, you can open an extra saving account for all your extra savings, extra cash. So you can transfer 10% of your paycheck to that account every month. So that way you are taking a forced pay cut and it is going to a separate account which you are not touching for spending. So that way it's not coming into any of your spending account. So that way it will be safe. No emotional spending, because it's anyway it's to the account, linked to the account, which is you are not spending on. And then we use this money for long-term investment. And how long-term investment, which earned compound interest, which we will talk about it in a bit. And then which can provide me recurring income in the future when I'm ready to take early retirement. And we can invest this amount in equity every month. So as you are taking cut every month, we can invest it in equity every month. And we will talk about tomorrow, like in next session, why equity, not any other thing. Because historically it is proven, last 60 years, 80 years of history, it's proven that equity gives the highest return in all other assets class, whether it's real estate, gold, fixed deposit, bonds. Among all of these, equity gives the highest compounded return over a period of 10-year plus. So as I said that Indians are typically averse to equity investment for various reasons, because our parents did not invest in equity, because at that time equity investment was not prevalent in India. It really came in 70s and then it got momentum in late 2000. So till that time, most of the population was not invest in equity. Since most of our parents did not invest in equity, we kind of got that averseness to invest in equity. But in today's time, without investing in equity, it's very hard to beat inflation. So somehow, directly or indirectly, we have to have some exposure in equity. And typically Indians save 4 to 5% in equity. But if you compare the developed economy like US, UK, here people directly or indirectly invest 35 to 40% of their savings in equity. And if you just look at the returns, that will make a clear sense for you. So if you see here on the left side, the equity return of S&P 500 index is for 1 year. So here if you see, it's very choppy. It's up and down, and it's from the last year, which was very choppy. Like if you see this fall, that was in the March. So steep fall we had. So in a 1 year period, if you see, it does not look great. It can be very choppy. But if you look at a 10-year trend, then it's like a straight line up. It is from 2010 to 2020. So that looks like a straight line up. So that is the key. The key for equity investment is it has to be for long term. It should not be for short term gain. It should not be out of greed. It is a systematic tool which we use without any emotional bias, without any behavioral decisions, and without any greed and without any fear. And we will discuss more in detail in next session how to do that. But if you look at other classes, so for example, here, this is the example of gold return on the left side. And on the right side, we have the bond return. So you can see it's all up and down. It's very choppy. There is no real trend here, right? So the real upward trend is only in equity over a long period. So no other asset class gives that kind of return. So the key is to take benefit of compound interest. So all of us have read that compound interest formula in our middle school. I'm not sure how many of us remember till now, but that is the key. In personal finance, this one formula is the key. If we understand this one formula, how it works, then all our problems will be solved. So what is this formula? Let's revise it. So amount is principal multiplied by 1 plus R, which is rate of return, to the power n, which is number of years. So whoever has learned this formula in their middle school, they know that if we put anything on exponent, then it multiplies exponentially after years. Like we all know that exponential graph, right? So initially it's very slow, but the moment it crosses a threshold, then it just go exponentially up. So that's the power of n, the number of years I talked about. The moment you cross 10 plus years, the growth is exponential. But the key is to remain invested, to remain there, hang in there. Don't take out your investment before that. So another important term in that line is CAGR, in short we call it, is compounded annual growth rate. So any investment return you want to compare, Apple versus Apple, you should compare is on the basis of CAGR. Like what is my CAGR? If that CAGR higher is the better. So for example, we just saw that FD gives CAGR of 1 or 2%, gold gives CAGR of 2 to 3%, bond gives CAGR of 3 to 4%, equity gives CAGR of 6 to 7%. So equity is definitely highest. So that CAGR means every year how much my money is growing on an average basis. But in it's compounding, it's not simple interest, it's compounding interest. And the key is that it works automatically. Only thing is the discipline is up to us. If we are disciplined, as I said, do systematically month on month without any break and remain invested for long term, then it will do its work. We just have to remain disciplined and committed. That's it. That's the only thing needed from us. And once we put it in autopilot, then it will keep on working. We don't have to do any daily effort for it. So this is just in terms of numbers. So as I said, that it's very, very important that we talk in terms of numbers. If we don't have the goal, then it becomes very, very difficult to manage everything. So right from the budgeting, right from how much we are earning, right from how much we are spending, right from how much we need in how many years, we all should talk that in terms of specific numbers. So here, for example, in this graph, if you see that somebody who start earning at age 22, just right out of the college. Now, let's say he's earning 60,000 per annum, is just out of the college. And then 10% of it, pay cut, he's going to take voluntarily is $6,000 per year. And if he invests that $6,000 per year, keep investing it till the age 50, because that is the age when we want to retire. We want to take Vanprastha. Right? And remain invested till the age of 60. That is the actual retirement age. So that $6,000 per month invested from 22 age till 50 age will become more than $1 million at the age of 60. So no need to work very hard. You keep earning $60,000 all your life in the same job, on the same floor, same thing. No need to move here and there. No need to change your jobs. No need to aspire for promotion. Nothing. And just save 10%. I'm not saying save 50% of your salary. But the key is right out of the college, from the very first paycheck, if you start, there is no way you can't retire at the age of 50. It's as simple as that. So this is the power of compounding, because here we are investing for 30 plus years. And as you can see that after 10 years, like you started doing from 22, right after 32, graph starts to take off. So don't get discouraged in initial years that I'm investing for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, nothing happening. You have to give it time, and then you will see the results. And as I said that I have 15 years of experience following all this. And I started my journey in 2005, and very comfortably in 10 years, I was on right track. After 10 years, I didn't have to look back. So as we see that the best time to have planted an oak tree was 20 years ago, as we said that you should have started at the age 22, but most of you are in mid 30s or early 40s or late 30s. But the second best time is today. Better late than never. Again, it depends on personal situation. It's not a thumb rule, but still, like for a middle-aged professionals also, there is still a lot of time left. Like even if you are in your 30s and early 40s, there is still a lot of time left, and we can take advantage if you have not done so of this. So I think we are 10 minutes over time. So I will stop here today, and we can take some questions or reflections now, and then we can discuss about the tools of investing in equity in our next session, like how we can go about implementing this particular strategy without affecting our consciousness, without getting into greed, without getting into fear, without spending our time on a day-to-day basis of tracking or monitoring any of that. Without doing any of that, how we can still take advantage of equity investment. So that we will cover in next part.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Vamshidhari Gopal Prabhu, thank you very much for sharing your experiences, and just reminds me, I had not heard your class, but But I had something similar that I had also started years ago. And definitely I can echo what you said, that just saving and cutting that 10% from your salary, not even seeing it. One of the examples I can share is that every year I would get a certain bonus and I would not even talk about it. I would not even bring it home. I would just put it in savings, and it helped a lot. But these are the things that's important. One may think, well, today's class is, we're talking about money. We're not talking about Krishna. But as long as we have this body, we have a family to maintain. We are all grihasthas. There's no brahmacharis here. Even brahmacharis need money. They're collecting money for the temple. So it's important to know how to, otherwise we'll be just stuck in this whole cycle of, 9 to 5 and not be able to be frustrated from inside because we're not able to perform our sadhana. We want to read more. We want to chant more. We want to have more peace of mind, and we're not able to. And a big factor of this is our material needs and just satisfying, and for the future as well. So thank you. This is very important. I'll just take 30 seconds and just make a couple of announcements for our upcoming programs, Prabhu, and then we'll go into questions. Devotees, you can keep your questions ready until then. So our upcoming program, this coming Sunday, the Sunday class will be by His Grace Anandamayi Krishna Prabhu, and the topic is Glories of Srimati Rukmini Devi. It's her appearance day, Rukmini Dwadashi. Saturday is Ekadashi, and also we have Kirtan at the Wanson Park in Paramus from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. as part of the pre-Narsimha Chaturdashi festival. And on Tuesday, the 25th, is when we are celebrating the Narsimha Chaturdashi. We'll be sending out all the information shortly. The program will begin at 5:30 onwards. We have lots of programs. We have the Havan, Abhishek, Narsimha Kavach, the 108 Tulsi offerings for Lord Narsimha, and we will also have a class by His Grace Das Gadadhar Prabhu from India. And then we have Kirtans, we will have Kahoot, and most likely we'll also have a virtual drama. So a lot of things planned. Please join. It'll be a lot of fun, and we need Lord Narsimha's protection. If anybody would like to be a Yajman for the Havan, our priest Padmodar Prabhu will be performing the Havan on your behalf. And if you'd like to be an Yajman, it's only $108. So please let us know if you'd like to, and we can add your name. And the rest of the programs, I think pretty much everybody knows. I don't see many new names or any new names here, so I will skip that and jump right into the question and answers session. So if anybody has a question, you can raise your hand or just type it in the chat box. No question is a foolish question. Don't feel shy to ask. Today everybody may be like, oh, it's not Krishna's topic, so I'm reluctant to ask a question. But your question may answer some other people's questions as well. So don't hesitate. Prabhu, I'll start with one. You mentioned about equity. Can you tell a little bit more about equity? What is equity? Is it like mutual funds, or are you going to cover that in the next topic, next session?
Yeah, we'll cover in detail in next one about what equity is and what the various vehicles of investing in equity. So we will go through that in next week. But again, to reiterate that however amount of money we can earn or we can save or we can have, unless and until we have this right consciousness, the right set of habits, we are not going to be stress-free, or we are not going to be peaceful, because this is the thing, and problem of plenty will be there, and especially for people like us. I'm telling you very frankly, because of insecurity, because of fear, we keep on hoarding. And then I have seen practical examples in last few months as I'm talking to one-on-one, that now people in their retirement age, they are having their retirement 401k from the workplace. They are having their social security, and now they don't know what to do with all that money. It's too much. And since that whole this life, working life, they have not practiced giving, or they have not practiced giving it away. It's very hard even to give it away at the time of retirement, even if they want to. There is a lot of inner resistance to do that. And then like typical Indian mindset is that we want to save. We generally save, like we are not overspender naturally, if there are otherwise few exceptions, but generally we are not overspender by nature. And being in Krishna conscious anyway, we don't have any sinful or wasteful expenses anyway, most of us. So if we save normally, then that is more than enough. So only thing is that we just have to keep our consciousness, keep our focus clear that what I am doing, why I am doing, whether I am keeping Krishna in center in whatever decisions I am making. I'm not making any foolish decisions of buying fancy new cars every few years. I'm not making foolish decision of buying a house which is beyond my capacity. I'm not making a foolish decision of investing money out of greed. Like I've seen examples like people borrow on credit card, send money to India to buy real estate. And now they are paying credit card debt, rolling from one credit card to another credit card. So that is totally foolish. So unless and until we get into any kind of those things, then there is no reason for us to feel stressed about money. And this thing should be the last thing to worry about during our japa or during our sadhana or anything, right? Because we all came here, I can say for myself, and most of you might be in the same situation, we all came here to earn money. We didn't come here for a missionary work. So, and we earn more than what we have expected initially, because nobody came here on a very first day thinking that I will become a citizen and I will spend multiple years in US. Everybody came with a 1 year, 2 year horizon to start with. So already we are in such a much better position. Krishna has given us so much already. So why to hanker for more? Just do the basics right, and then that's it. Keep your wants and needs checked. We can just keep our necessities checked all the time, whether it's really necessity or not. Be flexible to reduce our comfort to an extent where it is needed to improve our sadhana, to help our spiritual life. And if we have that mindset, then there is no reason to worry. Even in US, if you want to live, there are many places where we can live very, very low cost, very comfortably. We don't have to live in SFO. We don't have to live in New Jersey all our life, if that's what makes us stressful. So that's a few points I wanted to add.
Prabhu, this is the website that you were saying for the 3%?
Yes, Prabhu.
H.M. Bradley, okay.
Yes.
Right, it's hmbradley.com, okay.
Yeah.
I also just want to take one more moment and just share this flyer that we will be sending out, but here is our upcoming Narsimha Chaturdashi, beautiful flyer made by Ram Tulsi Prabhu. So I had just mentioned, don't forget the Kirtan at the park, join us for Harinam, and then join us online 5:30. Prabhu, there was one question on the chat, which is, you mentioned that we can try to retire at age 50, but how to handle the medical coverage costs without a job until the Medicare age is reached? Very good question.
Yeah. We will cover that in third part, but the simple answer is there are a couple of ways. One is we can have this private insurance coverage. Hopefully if Obamacare keep continuing, then through Obamacare, we can buy insurance coverage from marketplace anytime. And the beauty of that is the lower your income is, the lower premium you pay. So for example, many of our brahmacharis don't have any income, right? They don't earn any salary or even if they earn, it's very nominal. So for their medical insurance, they can get as low as $10 per month.
Yeah, but wouldn't they also look at your balance and your savings and 401ks?
No,
and
no. Obamacare is totally dependent on your current income, not your accumulated saving.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. You know, I was just thinking this is also good for those who have children in high school and above. This is the right time for them to understand these concepts.
Right.
Or something to keep in mind. Gopal Govind Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Very interesting topic, and we don't find too many of people speaking on this, especially on Krishna Conscious platform. Thank you for taking the opportunity to give us, opportunity for us to hear you. Question is, the school education is very expensive in US, and sometimes a pain to think about it. So in this planning, if you are covering it in one of the sessions, that'll be great. If not, then request you to please cover it next.
Yeah, so in detail, we can cover if time permits, or we can have another session if it's okay with everybody. But the short answer is, again, we have to keep in mind what our need versus want is. The need is to have proper education so that our kids can earn their own living, right? Now, that education doesn't mean that come from very prestigious private university, right? In US, there are various options are there to get educated. Like my own example, I would say my daughter is in 10th grade right now. She's going to 11th next fall. And as I said, I came in here in 2012. And initial few years, I was not in a mindset to stay in US for long. And that way I didn't save anything here. And then I got my house 2 years back. So I paid off everything, whatever my savings was there. So practically speaking, I didn't have any savings for her college till now. This year I got stimulus money, extra money, again by Krishna's mercy, so that I kept aside for that purpose. But again, I have practical ways to figure out that by as low as $15,000, $10,000 to $15,000, I can get her educated from college, even with no scholarship. Only thing is that we have to keep our mindset open. If you are not looking for only those prestigious public private universities which are away from our house or out of state. So key to college education is, one is in-state education, which is very cheap compared to the out of state education, number one. Number two is public institutions are generally cheaper as compared to private. Again, I'm not talking about a scholarship here, assuming no scholarship. Okay. Third is, another best option is to have community college. Community college offer a very cheap education for associate degree. So you can have 2-year college in community college as associate degree, and then you can go for regular university for your another 2-year specialization. So that way you can save on 2 years of college immediately. And some of the schools have the transfer program where from high school itself you can transfer to community college. So that way, even for community college 2 years, you don't have to pay a single dime. So you get associate degree free of cost. And on top of that, you just have to give 2 years college degree. And that too, if you do in state, in town, then you just have to pay the tuition fee, which would be around $5,000 to $7,000 per year as of today. And that for 2 years, it will be 14,000 maximum. So in that 15,000, you can get your kid college graduate. So that is comparable to the cost as it in India, and that should not be a problem for anybody, right? So that is the thing. And other thing is that if you are young, if your kids are young, then we will discuss few options for investment next week. So in that way, if you invest, then you can definitely save for their education, because it's a long period. It's 18 years. The moment kid want to go to the college, it's 18 years. So if you start right when the time kid is born or in the first year, then definitely within 18 years, you can build that saving to grow to fund the college.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for taking us on a reality check. As far as the money myths are concerned, it was really interesting, all the myths that you debunked. I was wondering if you could help us understand how one can stop oneself from emotional spending.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah, so there are a couple of things which you can use. First, it's, as I said, that most important is having a budget and adhering to that budget. Because the moment you have that, automatically your emotional spending will be curbed, because you will get a reality check every month rather than getting a reality check after a time when you are hit with some kind of low balance or something, you know. Or then you will recall, oh, last year 6 months back I spent on that. If I could not have, then I would have money for this now, right? So that kind of reality check can come very frequently if you follow the budget. So every month you will get a hit if you are not following that. Hey, I went over budget. So where did I went over budget? So that way you can check on that. And second thing is, which is most important, is just do proper chanting. Because as I said, it is inversely proportional. The moment as more and more we become Krishna conscious, less and less material attachment, and then less and less is spending. And that is the key. That is the ultimate key. There is no other way about it. Because until 4 years back, I was a totally materialistic person. I came here to earn money. I came here to retire early. That was my goal from 2005 when I started on this path. My goal was to retire by age 45. And I kind of achieved that goal. To be frankly speaking, if I would have transferred back to India, then I would definitely have got retired comfortably. So simple living I was practicing, but still I was not having this mindset. I was not having this higher consciousness. I was not having this purpose to why I am doing it, right? But by coming in contact with teachings of Srila Prabhupada and Srimad Bhagavatam, now that purpose is there, that why we want to do that. So when we keep that higher purpose in mind, then automatically our spending will be reduced. And again, spending for Krishna is not a problem. So if we keep Krishna in center, then spending is not a problem. We won't feel regret about it. But whenever we spend for ourselves, for our sense gratification, then definitely sooner or later we are going to regret about it. So like I spend for Krishna like wholeheartedly. I have altar, I have dresses, I have GT paraphernalia. So on that, I never give a second thought at all. But when it comes to myself, I do a reality check. If it is falling in my budget, I do it. Otherwise, I don't do it. Simple. And it's a practice. The more you do it, the more it gets in tune into your subconscious mind. So initially, it may look like overwhelming for initial few months. But when you start practicing it, then it becomes your regular thing. And then you will not fall prey to it. And others in family will follow the example. When they see you are not doing it for yourself, then they will also not demand. But when we ourselves are doing, then obviously we don't have right to say no to them. If we are buying latest phone ourselves, we can't say our daughter and son to not have the latest phone. If we are buying expensive cloth for ourselves, we don't have any right to say no to them. If we are buying expensive shoes, multiple shoes for ourselves, we don't have right to say no to them, right? So when we live that by example, then automatically they will cooperate and they will follow. So that way we can keep everybody in check.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Ananda Krishna Prabhu, you have a question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you for this wonderful three series seminar. I had heard all the 3 parts earlier also, 6 months ago when you had given it. So, Prabhu, my question is, what is your view? And again, like Gopal Govind Prabhu, I have to ask you in advance, if you're going to cover this in the future classes, then it's just fine. I'll wait for it. But if not, maybe if you can just shed some light on it. What is your view, Prabhu, on investing in cryptocurrencies? These virtual currencies. What do you think about it, Prabhu?
Yeah. So cryptocurrency, as it stands today, it's pure gambling.
Yeah.
As it stands today, it's pure gambling, and as a devotee, we should definitely stay away from it, not even look at it, no matter what's happening around us.
Okay.
It has no proven track record. It is pure speculative. It has no real underlying value. And short answer is stay away from it. Don't even pay any heed or attention to it.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. I didn't know much about it. I keep following a little bit, but never had any first-hand, experience or any sharing there.
Because it's a gambling, and gambling is against our principles, so we can't break that rule.
And Prabhu, can you please elaborate a little more? Why do you think it is gambling? Because other investments are also similar.
Yeah. So right.
For
right.
example,
so there is a
Go ahead.
Yeah. So there is a big difference. First is that cryptocurrency, as I said, that it is not regularized by most of the countries, not even any country as far as I know. Second, it is purely speculative because it don't have any underlying asset to it, which has any real value, right? And third is it's pure speculative because it don't have any long-term trade record. Cryptocurrency are in the market since last 2 years, and we have seen various ups and downs and wild ups and downs in it, right? So it has no track record. It has no track record, right? So if you want to invest in cryptocurrency, the only motive for you is that, oh, it has gone 10 times up, I missed on it. Or if I do it now, I can make 10 times more. So that itself is basically comes into greed and gambling, that I want a short-term gain. That is what gambling really means. I throw a dice and I convert 1 into 10, right? So that's the momentary gain or short-term gain out of not my ability, out of not the ability of the game. If I'm expecting, then that is gambling.
Okay.
So cryptocurrency falls into all those parameters. But if we talk about equity investment, and the way I'm going to tell you about the equity investment next week, we are not doing any of that. We are not doing short-term trading. We are not expecting short-term gain. I'm not making any speculative bet. Oh, I want to buy this stock. I want to buy that stock. Oh, this stock has gone 10 times up, so let me chase it. Or no, nothing of that sort. I'm not going to even look at any stock. I'm not going to even look at any company. I'm not going to even follow any ticker in every day.
Okay.
And that way I will do equity investment, and I will do a small amount every month. I will do it for long term, 10, 15 years. I'm not expecting again today, tomorrow, or 1 year or 6 months. I'm expecting again after 15 years. So no gambling give you returns after 15 years.
Prabhu, that's absolutely right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that way, if you approach equity, then it is not gambling. But if you approach equity like I buy this stock today, sell tomorrow, and I make 5%, 10% profit, then definitely it's a gambling, and we don't want to do that.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu, for so nicely answering this question. It, we read about it. We want to know more about it. Hear so many things, but this was a perfect Krishna conscious perspective on investing in any of these ventures.
Right.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. My name is Prabhakar. I am past all the retirement ages. I have been here for more than 50 years. Thank you for your kind advice to a lot of young people. I am beyond that. So anyway, I'm not asking for myself, but is the using of financial advisors being promoted like crazy? Does it make any sense? Do they know more than what I know myself for myself? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That is one question. Let me pose the other question. Does the taxes and other things come into picture? How do you handle it and keep the same stream of growth? And also, the children education. I could plan 2-year colleges and all those things for my kids. I passed from the topmost university in India, IITs and Chennai, and I have been very happy that my government paid for all those things anyway.
Yeah.
It is not possible for me to say to my child, hey, you go to 2-year thing and graduate from there. There are a lot of good choices. In fact, they are promoting 2-year colleges as a free college soon. I don't know how far it's going to happen. Right. So that is in spite of that, I could not stop my children sent to Stanford and things like that. I have 3 children. So I spent almost millions of dollars on that one. And also I sent them to medical school in the best school, and they're professors right now. So all these things possible because unlike in India, you can go to any school and you come back something of value. Here, you go to Harvard, you come out to be the topmost performer. Like that, you know. So one more last thing. How do you cover for sickness? You know, as you get older, we cannot prevent from falling sick. So how do you allocate something unknown? So you don't have to cover all these things, but this is my views. If you can say something, I will be happy.
Sure, Prabhuji. So let me try to cover it one by one, and some of this we will cover in next part. So I will skip on that, but few things I will cover here. So first thing you said about financial advisor. So again, like it depends like how much comfortable you are yourself, because most of the times we think that we know everything, but we don't, right? So if that is the case, then it's always better to get an advice. And as I said that as a typical Indian mindset, we don't want to discuss financial matter with others.
Yes.
But that is sometimes very, very detrimental to our financial health, because as a doctor, if you have get any problem, let's say sickness, you try to do home remedies for a few days. But if it doesn't work, then obviously you go to doctor and then you disclose everything, how it happened, why it happened, what are the symptoms you are getting, everything, right? So, but if you try to do it yourself, then as we seen in Corona time, that many people who are trying to do their own treatment, they most of them have to meet with death ultimately, right? So if we really think that we are comfortable, then yes, make your own decision. Like myself, like I don't go to any financial advisor. But if we feel sometimes that, okay, numbers doesn't come to me at all, no matter how hard I try, it doesn't come to me at all, then there is no harm in taking help. But the right thing to do is choose one properly. Like don't blindly follow any financial advisor. And the most important thing is that if you go to any financial advisor in market, they don't understand our philosophy and our mindset, what we are trying to do. They will advise you based on, okay, you get maximum, you just try to go full throttle and you will have these many millions and these many 100Ks by your retirement, and this is what you want. But we don't want that. Once you have your goal, first do your math in-house. And as I said, it's a middle school math, nothing more than that. All you need to learn is compound interest formula. For that, I will give you ready-made spreadsheets. So you even don't have to scratch your head on that. You just put your numbers in it and you will get the figures out of it. So you just need to know that much. So do your basic math, do your thing, and then whatever we discuss in this 3-part seminar, you will get the tools to do yourself, because we don't want to do many different things. We just want to stick to the basics, and what we need, we will get it for our needs, right? So that is the take on financial advisor. Then on your tax thing, that is a very good question, because taxes can eat away into your, sorry, Prabhu.
Housing and taxes, yes.
Yes. So tax can eat away into your gains. So it is very, very important that whatever investment we choose it which is more tax efficient. So for example, when people put money in 401k and retirement accounts, they think that, okay, I'm saving a lot of tax today, right? But we have to understand that this is not always tax free. The moment you withdraw this money, this will be taxable. Yes. Now, many a times we keep on hoarding. We keep on putting maximum into 401k in our earning years, and you are working for 20-30 years. You will have multi-million dollar in your account by the time you retire. If you work 20-30 years in US and you start putting 10-15,000 every year. As we see that just by 6,000, putting 6,000, you get million. Imagine if you are putting 10-15,000, 20,000 every year, then definitely you will have multi-million dollars in your account by the time you retire. And if you are working 30 years in US, you will have $6,000, $7,000, $5,000 in your social security every month. What you will do of all that money in your retirement? In retirement, people are earning 70, 80, 100K, 110K just out of these two things. And they are end up paying 20-30% tax, because now their wife is died, their children are out in college, they can't claim anybody as dependent, they are filing as single, and they end up paying 37%, 38% tax. While in your earning years, you may be paying only 12%, 15% or 18% tax. So that's why this we have to plan. We have to think through that what I am doing and why I am doing, what age I want to retire, what is my calculation, what is my graph, how it is going to grow over a period of time. If we don't any of that, then we are going to end up into that kind of situation. And then we can't give up easily also. Though you have $2 million in your 401k, it's very easy to give up that money if we have practiced hoarding all our earning years.
Yes, that's right.
And it pains to pay tax at that time. And there is an easy way to avoid paying tax at that time is just give that money to charity. Then you don't have to pay a dime to any government. But again, that need lot of courage to give away all that money which you hoarded for 35 years, 25 years to give in charity. So yeah, so we will discuss about what are the tax efficient way to invest when we cover investment options next week, so that we don't end up paying huge taxes unnecessarily.
Yeah, but as you get older, you get sickness also. You don't know what it is going to be.
Right. So for that, we will cover in third part, Prabhuji. So in that, we will discuss about all the unexpected events and all the fears which we have about material problems. So we'll cover one by one how we can financially secure ourselves against all of this.
Okay.
And in US, it's very easy. In US, it's very, very easy to do that. So as compared to India, especially for health. So there is no reason to worry about that. And about child education, which you said, it is true that if you get from prestigious university, it makes a difference. But there are again two ways to look at it. One is undergraduate and next is postgraduate. So undergraduate, it does not make much of a difference whether you are from Stanford or whether you are from a local university. Frankly speaking, because a local university graduate can earn anywhere from 60 to 70 to 80,000 K. A Stanford undergraduate can earn anywhere from 90,000 to 100K, 10, 20,000 difference. A local university graduate will earn in your local city, Charlotte, where cost of living is one half of the cost of living in California if he's graduated in Stanford. So even if he earn 150K in Stanford, it's equivalent to 70K in any other normal to tier 2 city, right? And so we have to look at cost, like return on investment. Like if I'm putting 200K, 300K to graduate from this big private university, what is my rate of return on that? But if you go for masters, then yes, then it can definitely make a difference. So again, it depends on the capability of the children. If he's really bright, he's really a scholar, then definitely we can go for it. But again, in that case, we should get good scholarships also, so that we don't have to bake our brain on that. And if they are graduating from such a prestigious university, then on them to repay for their education. So we don't have to burden ourselves for that. If we are making them graduate from Stanford or Harvard, then definitely if we are spending over and above our capacity, then we can go for a student loan in that case and make them responsible to pay for it. So at least our Krishna consciousness should not be get affected because of that. Very simple and very clear.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a responsibility as per Shastra and as per moral responsibility and obligation as a parent to get them educated, but nowhere it is mentioned that we should get them graduated from the best possible university.
Okay, it makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So we'll take two more questions, but I just want to share this, that Anandamai Krishna Prabhu brought up this cryptocurrency topic. I had not heard about it until today, where one devotee I was talking to, and the person was telling me that just a couple of days ago, the person broke their CD, 100,000 plus, and the person invested half of that CD into cryptocurrency. And today the person was sharing with me that, Prabhu, I lost 80% down. We're 80% down. So what should I do? And I had not heard, but I said, the first thing is, it sounds like gambling to me. Right. And I was just jokingly saying that you invested half of it. You should chant at least 50,000 names daily, holy names. That's Thakur chanted 300,000. But I'll probably ask the person to get in touch with you because the person was quite distressed. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Vijay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Prabhu. Hi.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, this is, you know, I as a community, I belong to a very special community called Sindhis, you know. Yeah. And somewhere we are very inclined towards money and making money. So looking at all the different tools where we are looking at gold, we are looking at the returns on bonds, your equity, and pretty much your online of what I've always invested. I was wondering if somewhere you'd cover real estate investment, because I own a business, to be very honest. I have a diamond jewelry online company. And today our equity to debt ratio, debt is hardly a couple of points compared to the total equity. So I'm very, very conscious, conservative investor. But I would love to get a thought of yours, because as a matured investor, my one kid is out of college, another is in college. So if in your second or third, if you ever come across, what do you feel about real estate investments, where you have a steady flow of rent coming in from either you own a strip mall or you have a 2-family home. And, we are in New Jersey, right? So things are very expensive. So anytime when you have, I would love to jump into your second and your third session. Just keep that if you have that any inclination on that,
Yeah, actually in my full seminar, which I covered in 5 series in Chicago, there I have covered at length about it. But here I was not planning due to shortage of time, but we will talk about it. But short answer is that real estate investment is not recommended from devotee point of view. And again, the reason is, couple of reasons, like it is my personal perspective, it is not backed by any instruction in Srimad Bhagavatam. Indirectly, yes, but not directly, because again, it falls into that principle, need versus want. So our need is just to live in one house where we want to protect ourselves. So that's the only house, that's the only real estate we should have. Second thing is, real estate resources are limited. We know that there are hundreds and millions of people in this world who are homeless. The more we have it for ourselves, because we have more money, then we are denying opportunity for somebody else to have that. So again, like from an equality point of view, that is not correct. And third is, real estate investment need maintenance, need time, need attention. You can't be hands-free autopilot mode in real estate investment. You have to have time and energy when you buy it. You have to spend time and energy to pay bills, to cover insurance, to take care of rent, lease, renewals, pay taxes, find new lease rental anytime. If you don't find, then you are in anxiety about it. If rates don't increase, then you are in anxiety. If rate collapse, you are in anxiety. So it's not a autopilot hands-free investment. So again, it's taking you away from your primary goal. So that is another reason to not go overboard on real estate investment. And it's not providing you any additional security.
And I'm glad we have not done that, because in the tri-state, the law is pro-tenant. It's not pro-landlord. I have few of my friends who own, 15, 20 apartments, and they're not having
it doesn't matter. Right. Because for materialistic person, if you talk, he will say, hey, buy one after another. If you have money, keep on paying loans, and you always get more than what you pay as a mortgage. You always get more rent on that. So what is the problem, right?
And but again,
but from devotee point of view, we want to save every extra moment which we can out of our daily life to spend on Krishna. If that is our consciousness, then why do I spend even a single hour or a 10 hours per month or a year on something which I can get through elsewhere? And again, if you look at real rate of return on real estate, it won't beat equity in a long term. It looks like, but you calculate from that CAGR formula, you put the reverse number into that formula, and it will come either at mark or below the mark of equity in long term.
So true, because you have taxation also, like something, if you own something in New York City and you buy a 2-bedroom for $1.5 million, you have taxes worth $30,000 a year, just like that. So, and which never goes, it never comes down. Taxes goes up.
Right. So you have to take total cost into account. So from that perspective, real estate is not recommended.
Fantastic advice, Prabhuji. Very nice advice. Thank you so much. It cleared my vision more.
Right.
Hare Krishna.
So one last question in the chat box, which is that if for a foreign student studying in America, having just graduated, gotten a new job, how can one, can they do investments here? And how can they plan to save money?
Right. So as we discussed, that somebody who is just out of college, this is the right time and right opportunity to start investment for their long-term future. As we just find that example, from age 22, if somebody start, then by age 50, they can be definitely retire from all practical purpose. So we will discuss like next week, early retirement planning. So in that we will discuss all the tools which are available to invest and how to invest. And anybody who has a SSN can invest in those. So that is the requirement. Like basically they should have the SSN. So if it's just a student, and I'm not sure like for a student how it works to get the SSN or something, but if they are doing some job, then definitely they will have the SSN, I believe. So if they have the SSN, then definitely they can invest.
Okay, thank you very much. So what I'll do is at this point, I'll end the question answer session. Any devotees who have their questions, please hold on for the next session. And even if you would like to send me the questions beforehand, I can forward them to Prabhu before his second session. But we're not done yet, so don't be disappointed. Your questions will be answered in the next session. And I just want to say that it is so important. And I was just hearing each and everything you were saying, and you were connecting it all of this financial discussions, the details, to have to bring more time to devote to your Krishna conscious life. The whole purpose is we must understand that, which is very much key. This was not a financial discussion only. This was how devotees can do what we are supposed to do to make this human birth our last birth, so we can go back home to get Godhead. And that's, I can't thank you enough for stressing and reminding all of us that very fact. We could lose everything that we have today, but if we lose our Krishna consciousness, it's again repeated birth, death cycle. So thank you very much, Prabhu. And I want to thank all the devotees for hanging in till the end, and we'll again meet next Wednesday. So let's